Okay, everyone, welcome to ISIS paper book study, chapter 20, the inferiorization process of Black children. Wow. Getting started, I want to read the first intro paragraph. Um, let's get to the page. Black people as a collective are becoming increasingly sophisticated. We are becoming strong enough to face many unpleasant realities and truth about ourselves and the social system and world that we live in. Without denial or panic, the ability to analyze ourselves, our behaviors, and our reality critically is one of the signs of true mental health. Another equally important aspect of mental health is our full acceptance of responsibility for reorganizing our own behavior in order to change things that are wrong. So I really appreciated this because I think it gives note to the fact that a lot of people are very much aware that the society is like very like evil or wrong or like bad, but still they do nothing to like counter that energy. They just like go with the flow, which is a sign of poor mental health. So I really appreciated this because she's aware that Black is genius, but she's also very aware of like what's been done in Black people. That's why she's like throughout the book she's been very blunt. Some would say tough on Black people, but she's just telling us about our harsh reality. And I think it's really this part was really important.
Yeah, I guess I'll give a little summary too. I know we got in the habit of doing that. I kind of like it.
Yeah.
So basically, I really enjoyed what I was reading. I loved everything she had to say about the inferiorization process. I think that is very important thing to identify and that we counter, because a lot of it's being done. Like, I mean, white supremacy is working all the time, but this inferiorization stuff is like, I think, some of the most important things, and can go a long way to producing, functionally. I don't know, it's not even superior, but just Black people are able to function properly. Um, yeah, yeah. So I enjoyed the. She did drop a lot of gems. There's a lot of lists she had in here that I'm gonna print out and put on walls throughout my house and force everybody to obey. As dictators that might have sound, but it's important we do it. Um, yeah, so I loved it.
Um,
I absolutely love this chapter. Sorry, thank you. I absolutely love this chapter. Um, it was very. I was going to use the word triggering, but it wasn't more a trigger. It was more like having someone acknowledge some of like the experiences that a lot of us go through, and have it written in such context. I just wanted to hug myself, but then I didn't. I stopped feeling sorry for myself because I had to agree with the higher part of the conversation where it's up to us to put it upon ourselves to make that change and make that difference, because the society is not built for us. They've aligned our our social cues on where they want us to be in society. So it's by design, and by understanding that I can't get upset for any kind of like social position in which I've experienced or experiencing burnout syndrome at work. It's because of the forced social psychosocial development, and not being able to meet it adequately, with knowing that I'm deserving of more. Like, I can't go backwards and just take this as like, oh well, then this is why. I now have to be like, okay, this is why, but this is what I'm going to do to change it with this knowledge, as opposed to just sitting and riding along with, oh well, at least somebody understands my positioning in the earth, if you know what I mean. So that was something I experienced while reading this. So having somebody validate, but then taking the validation not to mean that it's okay, taking the validation to understand okay, these are the guidelines of what has to be changed now.
Yeah.
I really, 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 I can't wait to read certain parts of this chapter.
Yeah, like it's wow. Does anyone want to give a like Ezekiel mentioned, like a summary of what you read, what you felt a little bit?
Yeah, to me, I agree with Mary said. Definitely was a moment to revisit the moments as a child where I was inferiorized by the oppressor, inferiorized by my white teachers and my peers alike. Chapter showed me the rigorous strategy that white people use to ensure that we do not mature to reach our genetic potential. And it took me back to Waldorf Elementary. It took me back to having white teachers who would physically, verbally abuse me and fellow black students, including Swa. Um, and like it allowed me to know that I wasn't like I'm not crazy. This actually happened, and this actually happened for a reason. You know, and that reason was to maintain and ensure that white supremacy manifests and works.
Yeah. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone. Um, that being said, I want to read from 241 the definition of inferiorization, and she says inferiorization is the conscious, deliberate, and systematic process utilized specifically by a racist white supremacy social system as conducted through all of its major and minor institutions, including the institution of the family, to mold specific peoples within that system, namely all peoples classified by the racist system as non-white, into functional inferiors, in spite of their true genetic potential for functioning under the system of white supremacy. Under the system of white supremacy, the more melanin pigmentation present in the skin, and thus the darker the individual, the greater the inferiorization pressure imposed by the racist system. Thus, among all non-white peoples, blacks are most victimized by this process. Particularly, darker black people receive equal victimization even amongst black people themselves. So, this definition allows me just to understand all of like the self-hate, the jokes that we threw around in the classroom about other black kids, just the jokes I heard about dark skinned people, and the whole so-called colorism um reality, like that is the process of inferiorization. It's the black at the bottom, and this is why like literally like kids and the education system, well, the more melanin they seem to be, like the least likely it is that they care about school. Because when I was doing my work at a middle school, the kids, like she mentioned, they were just, we're gonna talk about the behavior patterns, but inability to like focus. Just I'm certain being raised by black child parents, but that's the later chapter. But still, that's a lot.
But did you read the inferiorization as the conscious, deliberate, and
Yeah, the
systematic process?
definition. Yeah, I just read that.
All right, I wanted to add to that. So we know what the definition is, and I wanted to just give more context to like what how those behavior patterns manifest. Um, Under white supremacy system, the more melanin pigmentation present in the skin, that's the darker the individual, the greater the inferiorization pressure imposed by the racist system. Thus, all non-white peoples, Blacks are most victimized by this process, particularly darker Black people receive extreme victimization even amongst Black people themselves. This skin coloration code established by the global white collective, like other methods of Black subjugation, is essential to white genetic survival. The same code causes Black people to say, don't marry anyone darker than yourself, preferring light-skinned persons as mate. Such socially imposed patterns of thinking yield the Black infant and its first direct experience of rejection and negation by the racist social system he or she is born into. This negation will continue for the entire lifespan. Simply, inferiorization means that through the structuring of thought patterns and social experiences such as poor housing, poor healthcare, deteriorating school systems, broken families, and low income levels, a Black or other non-white child who could be a genius based upon genetic endowment can be turned into a criminal who must spend his productive years behind the bars of a prison cell. Inferiorization deliberately turns a Black child who could become a brilliant universal statesman, a strong supporting father, and a loving, caring protector for his wife into a drug addict. It turns a Black female child who can become a physician, scientist, and excellent into a prostitute. So I want to just give a little bit of insight into like what inferiorization has to do, which is like dehumanizing people and reducing their roles in society to that of a thug or criminal or a prostitute. And I mean, we've all seen that. I mean, it's why you've seen that. We've really seen that happen to people who grow up in our neighborhoods, watching people deteriorate over time and become, criminals. I don't know how many friends you got squad are in prison, but I have a lot who are in prison and vice versa.
Yeah, like yeah, this is real. Like my ex from high school became a drug addict and prostitute and child parent. So yeah, man, the imperiorization process is real, and like the black on black self hate that this process creates definitely is also very real, and it manifests at some of its uglier moments in like poor black communities, urban communities, I would imagine.
I wanted to
Yeah, for
say
go ahead,
thank
Mary.
you. For me, listening, oh, well, when I read it initially, but the part that Trey just read out in terms of experiencing rejection and that being like following you throughout your life, that level, that infuriation, that first, I feel like that first rejection, either from like lack of male figures being at home. I'm talking particularly for Black women. In terms of male figure not being at home or having a reduced contact with male figure, and then your first encounters with males, especially as a dark skinned woman, is them calling you burnt toast or calling you basically just stating, I'm not attracted to you, you got big lips, you got this and that. The first kind of thoughts that go in your head in terms of like socialization, or like I'll talk about my psychosocial development. At first I just thought, for me, males are somebody to be friends with, not somebody to be with. And this was an actual thought that crossed my mind because, okay, well, I'm not deemed as attractive. And then obviously I grew up a bit, and then I was like, oh, you find who's meant for you, sort of thing. But for a long time, you either don't like men, or you could, I see how it has the potential to build up bisexual sexuality in Black females. I see how it has the potential to build up a queer relationship of assuming a more masculine role, because the masculine opposite doesn't seem to find you attractive or rejected you at first. So you just find your own way to basically coincide in society in a healthy way, where you still feel like you have a fighting chance at some form of socialization with a type of group. And I feel like this is a very big reason as to why a lot of dark-skinned Black women end up with white males, because of that first initial encounter of it being so negative. It's just like the first person who shows them any kind of attraction, whether it be through fetish or actual genuine love. If it's a white male, they will literally cling on to that, and the psychology will tell you that, okay, well, they're attracted to me, and then end up having a distinct like kind of hate towards the black male. Like, that's in reading that chapter, and her explaining the rejection, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing explained the rejection that the very the highly melanated get it at the early, it could really destabilize a path that you may have went on naturally versus the environment that has been built around you and how it's reacted to you.
Wow, Mary, thanks for saying all of that. It reminds me of wow, jeez. I was so excited to, because what you said just wow reminded me of a lot of stuff, but I literally totally just lost it. But I'm sure it'll come back. I'm sure it will come back. Um, Anyone else want to share something?
I wanted to read some of 1242. So we talked about what it is, and I want to talk about how it happens, how it manifests further. Um, this social, it's on page 242 if anyone wants to know what page I'm reading from. This social process of distortion is achieved through imposition from birth to death of a stressful, negative, and non-supportive social environmental experience upon the people who are inferiorized. The negative and stressful social experiences, which are structured to affect every aspect of life activity, leads to the development of a negative self-concept, a loss of self-concept, and the development of self-inclusive destructive behavior patterns. Some of these negative behavior patterns rampant among Black people today include showing off material possessions, gossiping about one another, name calling, cursing, squabbling, snitching, and being discourteous and disrespectful to one another. When these behaviors are directed towards people who are a reflection of self, i.e., Black people towards other Black people, they indicate self dislike and self dissatisfaction. The high rates of Black male homicide and suicide are extreme, but are two common examples of this phenomenon. Black people using drugs and selling drugs to one another is another example of the same homicide and suicide pattern. I just like definitions that are really straightforward and give context to our behavior patterns, like why Black people are like fall victim to such silly behavior patterns. Like you've all heard the saying, "Oh, invite them to the cookout," and all these little silly sayings that are really much counterproductive to Black people who've been classified as Black, and they don't really serve a real purpose. And our cultural enlightenment, our enlightenment as a people as a whole, and it just, once again reminds me of like the things that I was victim to, like growing up, like fighting, like being a kid and fighting boys and fighting girls, like being conditioned to like not really care about school because I didn't have a mom or anyone that was able to help me with my homework without yelling at me, without making me feel like scared of like asking questions. Like just the amount of terror that I had in my childhood growing up, just reinforced watching my family fight, watching people tell on each other, just watching I guess negative behavior patterns manifest all around me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Trey. And I want to get back to what Mary said, because I agree with Mary said about how like that kind of like those behavior patterns of being like constantly rejected by like Black males could produce that. And also like over the weekend during my vacation, I had a conversation with someone, and like she asked like what could she like do about like the bitterness that she felt towards Black males due to like not fully understanding the scale of racism and white supremacy. and what that has done to the black male female dynamic. It has made them like, because she had like a lot of like resentment and like a lot of like bitterness towards black males, but we had really like interesting and I believe constructive conversation about that. But yeah, it's just so interesting how Mary brought up that very not talked about dynamic possibility, and often like shamed for people even having the bravery to mention stuff like that. um so yeah, really important points.
Yeah, I thought a lot about children. Obviously, this entire this chapter is about the inferiorizing children, but also how that kind of affects men and women, and the definitely the dynamics that it creates. Um, it was I want to read this part where it says, you guys kind of, well, actually, you guys kind of, it was very hard to like kind of highlight stuff throughout this chapter because everything was just kind of really, really good. um, I enjoyed the part about the family unit and how inferiorization happens there. I think all of us we've all kind of succumbed to some kind of verbal abuse from our parents. I also enjoyed how she kind of just broke down like the roles. She did a good job just breaking down everything and kind of showing how what it means to function properly in society, because I think that was something that I didn't understand prior to this, like that there's a difference, that you know a lot of the reason why we see so many black and non-white people in the condition there is because they're not able to function properly in society. And I think when you use that kind of definition, you're able to really pinpoint and get to the root of the problem and counter it, because before it was so many different things like not having a dad or growing up poor, and it was never really defined as contributing to your ability to function in society. um
Yeah.
that's it. Just want to comment.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna read that the functional family unit, what that looks like, because a lot of black people and non-white people are have totally lost sight of this, or probably never had it. So it's on page 244, and it says the functional family unit is composed of the father, mother, and offspring. The ultimate role of this vital social unit is to instruct the children as how adults and females function, usually har- harmoniously together for maximum development of a people. Individual family units are but cellular units of a whole organism called a people or a nation. All of the units must function efficiently and effectively if the whole organism is to live a healthy existence. If a family unit cannot instruct the young in harmonious patterns of relating between adult male, females, and males, then ultimately the people will perish because adult male and female alienation eventually leads to the end of procreative process. Without the young, the people will have no future. So this is what the functional family is. I think the white supremacists have done a great job of making that look like everything but this. I could be wrong. Another thing I wanted to
I wanted to comment on what you just read real quick. Yeah, for me, when I was reading this chapter, I kind of thought a lot about kind of like popular culture, black feminism, and the toxicity that it like brings. I see a lot of these like poor behaviors kind of being exhibited, by you know uh black people that aren't able to function properly in society. And I see in pop culture and black feminism these things being promoted, and that people should be striving for these things, raising a whole raising a whole house on your own. She even talks about the I don't know if it was this chapter, but the strong black woman, taking on stuff like that. And it never it for me personally, it always it didn't sit well with me because I don't know why somebody would want to take on so much, or why you would want somebody to take on so much by themselves. Like that never made sense to me. So that whole I've always had an issue with that, and she kind of clarified it to me and almost pretty much justified my feeling that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah, thanks for that. For sharing that, Ezekiel. I wanted to read from page 243. Like, why does this inferiorization process happen? Because that is also important to understand. Inferiorization is essential to the process of oppression. It ensures that the oppressors need not be troubled to hold the oppressed constantly under gun and key to keep them in the oppressed state. It keeps them oppressed from effectively challenging the oppressive process and system. And this way, the oppressors mold the oppressors. In this way, the oppressors mold the oppressed to fully share in the process of their own oppression. In the final analysis, the process of ephemerization is designed to specifically prevent the maximum development of the genetic potential of the non-white oppressed. Black people must learn that no system of oppression ever maximally develops those whom the system is specifically structured to dominate. Such a system only permits the oppressed to survive, that they can continue being oppressed. No system of oppression is structured consciously to destroy itself. So, my fellow Black people who are participating in the elections, we cannot vote ourselves out of oppression, cannot vote ourselves out of genocide. It needs to be a massive collective effort of understanding the problem and getting that awareness, and not coming together, because every time we come together something bad happens, but individually, like being on code, coming up with ways to solve this solution's problem. Any comments? Anything might want to share something, guys?
So I agree. I've been saying that all day. You can't throw away white supremacy. You can't, like, no matter what white guy is running America, white supremacy is the underlying practice of contemporary society, especially American society. White supremacy is always going to be um, the bread and butter of the society, how it operates, and Black people are always going to be victims and instruments of torture underneath white supremacy. So you can't go to the ballot offices and like say, "Hey, okay, I'm gonna vote," and then a new guy's gonna come, and this new guy is gonna end white supremacy. I'm gonna be a lot more safer about the country. It's not how it works. This whole system is directly created upon the oppression of Black people and the torture of Black people. It's gonna continue for a very long time until it's like completely eradicated.
Yeah. Anyone have any comments?
Oh, yeah, my bad, yeah.
Oh, also, I think this part was super important. This is also on page 243, and it says, um, Black people themselves will have to enact the development. Sufficient data and evidence are in after 127 years of so-called emancipation. The white collective has demonstrated that it does not intend to develop Black children maximally. Still, whites are talking about Black children and Black people as being genetically inferior to themselves, and they are developing extensive social policies based solely upon such a pattern of reasoning and logic. Damn. So this will explain all the new prisons that keep popping up, all this racist legislative that's, keeping, what just didn't get passed, or the cash bail is still, I don't know, debtor's prison or whatever. Just a whole bunch of white nonsense, or a whole bunch of white supremacy, I should say, affecting people who aren't aware and spending a lot of their time in a state of nonsense.
Yeah, I agree. That's what goes with the being functionally inferior. Like
Yeah.
an institution like a prison is created to house people you deem to be functionally inferior or oppressed. So it's just things like that really made me understand what it means like to function in society, and to really understand that a lot of the institutions and a lot of the ideas that are created, the laws that we abide by, are to make sure that we remain to in society, that we function inferiorly considered to the whites. Very like it's something that like I want to bring up all the time now in conversation when talking about like black conditioning, because I feel like it's an important like concept and definition that everybody understands, that white supremacy is setting it up. We're not inferior, we're not all stupid, we're not all like, this isn't all just happening to us because we're making bad choices. Like this is all happening to us because society has set it up that we act functionally inferior, or that we are classified as functionally inferior.
Yeah, I really, I just wanted to just piggyback off both of what Trey and Ezekiel have said here. And for me, it's more, how do I describe? For me, in reading the chapters, I was able to just basically just see in a timeline of how like society has actually showed them this inferiority, and like how they've forced it down our throats, in the sense like in around secondary school times, there's a lot of girls who like were having like dysfunctional dynamics at home and needed like their own place to stay. And one thing that was like proving like the most functional, if you wanted a place to stay, was to be pregnant. Like, and that was, people was like, so if they would fall into it, they'll be like, oh well, at least I can apply for housing now and I'll go up in the council. And it became a thing where if you were trying to do things the straight way, like apply for housing, you'd be at the bottom of the list, and the things that will bump you up to the top of the list is becoming pregnant. And a lot of people use this as a method of getting housing. But it never occurred to us, especially then, like, oh, it made us angry, like, oh, I have to be pregnant to get a house. But we never thought to ourselves, they wanted this way, so black children are now producing younger black children at a stage where we're not emotionally developed, and then we can function in society where, to a certain level of intelligence, but not enough to have your own autonomy. You can easily be told what to do in that circle of doubt. And so it made so much sense, and it just felt insidious, the structure that we live in. And I just wanted to read this section because it really called out to me. I feel like it will just highlight more context just for online. Everyone here is aware, but I just wanted to read it. It's page 240, just at the end. In a social system designed to achieve white domination, the experience of that system molds white children so that they may function in the role of the oppressors or the functional superiors. Because that is what white supremacy is supposed to mean, that whites will function in a superior way as compared to non-whites, those structured superior functioning whites will be able to oppress others. The social system simultaneously will mold all children classified as non-whites or others to play the role of the functional inferiors or the oppressed. This is why a white racist social system is completely incapable of providing total equality of opportunity to blacks. Such a system must, for its maintenance, produce differential levels of functioning for whites and non-whites. If, for example, apparent equality is granted in an area of education, it is denied in the family background. If it is given in income, it is denied in the housing opportunity. If it is granted in the healthcare services, it is denied in terms of father's income levels. If it is granted by law, it is denied through social practice, etc. That for me was a very important part in terms of just like scaling through the experiences that a lot of us will experience or have see people experience in our lifetimes, especially for me over here in London. It's just, I'm sure over there too, but just something I wanted to like summarize in terms of this. I hope it comes to mind. If anybody has thoughts, don't be afraid to jump in. Yes, so the role of the functional inferior, like for me, what I experienced in like in any like social experiment or like watching Big Brother or watching any TV show, reality TV show that is based that you can just observe human behavior, you'd find the white cis male feels like he has to take dominance and lead, or like he would control or try to assign roles to people because literally their programming is you're the boss. The TV show, any movies growing up where there's a male figure that is like Indiana Jones or anyone who's like the male protagonist, he has control over the woman. All the women want to sleep with him. It's like James Bond. Like they just keep showcasing this patriarchal, misogynistic man, and we're all supposed to be okay with it and melt under the feet. That's the programming we're supposed to be given, if anything, for that behavior to be excused. But the black male is like highly scrutinized. You have to watch them. They're usually mean mugging, hold your bag. They're no good to themselves or to in or outside of their race. And as a black woman, you'd function in a way that you can be a sexual figure or you can be like a helper. And I noticed like what the main like rhetoric that they try to give like mixed race or light skinned women is that you are like the showcase for your race. You wear the red dress, you wear the red lipstick. Like we can tolerate and take that level of exoticness from you, but from a black woman, you're either like extremely a whore or like what are you doing? Like I will never forget. I was listening to, this is the last comment I'm going to make on this. I was listening to a song back in it. I was like 16, 17, sleeping around at my cousin's house. And Kanye West, That Doesn't Kill Me, the Stronger song came on and Cassie was in it doing her thing. And I love music and I love to dance. So I was dancing around in the house, as Cassie was doing to that song. And my cousins literally said, look at her, laughing to themselves. Look at her dancing like she's mixed race. And that shut me down. I literally just like sat down. I didn't talk to my cousin for like 2 days because he's a black male as well. But like, it was just the context in his mind that you can only dance or have that kind of appeal if you are light skin or mixed race. And that was coming from a black man who now is in the industry managing music artists. So that was even scarier for me, knowing that kind of mentality, it fits, it makes sense, but that kind of mentality is, hopefully it's changed now. But yeah, just seeing it play out on itself. Sorry for the long ass explanations, but it's just a lot for me.
Thanks for sharing that, Mary. And so a lot of stuff you're saying, it just reminding me about how like masterful the European white society has done, and like just the separation process and like the splitting of everything, because this inferiorization process is so good because everything's already separated. So you can train people to hate parts of their body. And so like they'll spend like an entire day focusing on like, their one part of their body, totally ignoring like society, totally ignoring like reality. This system is so masterful that it'll have you like battling certain parts of your mind, like maybe your creative side, maybe you want to create something, but then that other part of your mind is like, no, I can't do that. Your mind is like not like separated, it's like one whole like entity, etc. But it's like, holy shit, this is a really like it's like some really like deep programming that has been done here, that has been done to
Yeah.
massive.
Yeah. I wanted to read something like definitely coincide with Mary was talking about how like they use the media to further our inferiorization. This is on 247. I'm gonna read something from page 247 and page 248. Um, the racist social system can survive only if black manhood is destroyed. It steadily has removed strong black male images such as those presented by Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. Initially, it replaced those progressive and constructive images with the powerful television and movie images of Geraldine and Superfly. The racist media then followed with the message to blacks that it is a good time to see a pathetic adult black male who can never seem to find a decent paying job, and a black teenage male son who is a clown and criminal shoplifter who never studies, but who now has an intense interest in academic subjects. So here you see what the media is doing, and here on page 248 is a direct result of that media programming. All of these factors are responsible for the now epidemic proportions of black male passivity, uh, femininity, transventilism, bisexuality, and homosexuality. The root cause of which is the racist system necessity to stamp out black manhood through distorting the dynamics of black family life. Black people should not view these patterns of behavior as isolated criminal or immoral acts. They must be recognized as the byproduct of a social political warfare against the maximum development of black people as a whole. And I think these things also affect women in the same way. Seeing negative images will make them want to, practice anti-sexual behavior. And just when I read that, I was like, wow, it makes so much sense why we have people not really comfortable being in their bodies. Not some people not being comfortable calling themselves men because all their representations of manhood are like negative. Um, I know even for myself, I used to be like, I used to not take on the meaning of manhood because my definition of manhood was through what I saw around me, which is patriarchal behaviors, the oppression of women, and like all these negative things. So for me, I had to like define manhood myself, and then ascend to a level of manhood that I thought was appropriate, because all the representations of manhood around me were negative growing up, and even when I was in college, they were still negative.
Damn. Oh, oh, that's to expect under this system.
Yeah,
Okay.
I enjoyed her answer to that. Thanks for reading that, Trey. I enjoyed her answer to that. Like what she had to say about not men. Um, so you, she gave an answer to that. How we can kind of protect ourselves or start to practice. Uh, counter that. By black people or black men especially not trying to receive less than their worth. I guess for me, I'm not even really sure how that looks. Because I can't imagine turning something down. You know, that makes me a certain amount of money, but knowing that a white guy makes more, you know, that would piss me off. But at the same time, am I like, well, damn, this is kind of good money though. It's
Yeah.
not good money. It's very like it's a very tough like situation. And honestly, like I don't know what I would do. You know, admitting my weakness. I also wanted to comment on what Mary read earlier. I enjoyed that. I also had that highlighted. A lot of that particular section reminded me of the elections going on, and just how these props and these laws create issues, like solve problems by creating a different issue. Um, and generally in general, this book is very like it's kind of still crazy to me that everything that she's talking about is happening every day still, and she wrote this in the 80s, the end of the 80s, and it's 2020, about to be 2021. So it's still kind of crazy to me how accurate she can still be. and she can basically, it's almost like she's seeing the future. So
I I think that
she's called out a lot of it. Good.
that's a
Go
great
ahead,
comment,
Swell.
Ezekiel, because it's just like when you understand the system, as we learned in chapter 3, you understand the system, like its patterns of behavior, major patterns of behavior, small patterns of behavior can be predicted by the collective of those people who are within that system. And I think that's the brilliance of like the ISIS papers, that it teaches us like the symbolism, and it teaches us like what the system is, what it is, and how it works, which is something that we've sort of had knowledge of long ago, but due to the system, we did not. But yeah, thanks for sharing that, Ezekiel. And I have a question, like for people who have been around Black children, is the inferiorization process in the schools or wherever you have happen to seen children behave, is it still alive and well? Is the process still having maximum effect? For me, working at on Carver, I would say this chapter, Black children being inferiorized, is definitely still happening 100%. And also the Black children raising children is still happening, because a lot of the staff would
Mm.
tell me that a lot like the problem isn't just the kids, it's the parents. And then I was like, now I know it, now I understand why it's the parents, because the parents are children as well. And now I could understand why when I was there we had a parent come to the school, pull her daughter out of a classroom because her daughter used some of her hair gel. So and she was yelling at her in the hallway. So this is the stuff that we are exposing, the we are doing in public as as so-called Black people. And I'm glad I have the context now, because at first I just thought, oh, it's some stupid hood, regular old hood stuff, but no, it's much deeper than that. You know?
Yeah, I remember my first coming to London. I was in Covent Garden just before the class started, 2000, I think of 2019. I was stopped by the street. I stopped on the street by this Black guy, and he was telling me how like he's looking for like donations to help the Black youth. Because a lot of Black youth in London have fallen victim to knife crime, and like in London, there's like a really big problem where uh, like British kids, Black British kids, stab each other on a high frequency rate, and you go to Brixton, you go to Camden, you go to any of these tube stations, you'll see a bunch of teenagers in front of the tube station, like trying to sell you stuff to stop knife crime, and it just shows you that how like these kids have been raised is it hasn't really stopped them from stabbing each other. So like knife crime in London is a big problem, and you have mainly kids stabbing each other because they don't have guns, so they're not able to shoot each other like we do in America. They just stab each other, and it's super popular. It's like the new crack epidemic. Kids knifing each other. Um, so I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. So as far as children, whether I'm witnessing that, can you restate the question real quick, Swell?
Um, are you seeing effects of Black child inferiorization today? Like, if you happen to be around kids, do you still see the inferiorization process happening?
Most definitely. I think kids are already aware of their skin color, so they already are kind of already assuming their roles, or the functional roles that society has created for them. You know, always being under that kind of stress. Um, I see kids. I was subbing a lot. I see kids not wanting to do work or have any motivation to be educated, especially in middle schools, especially like 14, sixth to eighth grade. So anywhere from 12 to I think maybe 14 years old. But yeah, they no motivation to do well in school. They literally come to school to hang out. A lot of what she was saying in those later chapters about those kids like going to school and not going to classes. Um, and one thing that really sticks out to me, I think, is that I see a lot of kids like acting grown, like grown ups.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. I definitely see a lot of that now, which is why I can understand it would lead them to that mentality that they can do grown up things. You know, so I think it's definitely still going on alive and well.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree with Ezekiel. Also, my experiences of seeing it now was, I feel like I've shared this before, at least amongst us as a group, but I'm going to share it again. When I was babysitting my one of my youngest cousins, who's now like 9. By the time she was like 2, 3, and it was just a transition before she started nursery and school, and like very happy, amazing, intelligent child. I loved spending weekends with her. Like we had the most fun, and I was very black oriented. I always used to show her stuff that represented her, like all the stuff that she would watch with me, as long as it was appropriate. When she started nursery, maybe like 2 weeks, she came for a weekend again, and she was like, she didn't have her cute demeanor. She wasn't like trying to use her cuteness to like get out of trouble. She literally was, she seemed down, she was down. And then when I like got into it, she said that she wished that she was white, and that broke my heart and my whole soul. And I understood it was literally the introduction to primary school and to that caused this. She's seen teachers maybe treat students in a different way. She's seen other people being reacted to in a different way that she's used to being reacted to, but via me or everybody who loves her in the household. And just seeing that deterioration like really spoiled, it destroyed something in me. And it kind of told me that instantly, like I did like my passion post about it or whatever, but it was more so the understanding that she needs black roles and figures in school being shown to her that basically show that she's just as amazing, she's just as beautiful. But now I understand it thanks to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. I understand it that not only is it purposely structured in place, it was part of this. The socialization is happening as early as nursery, which is elementary for you guys. Is socialization. The socialization happens at the first interaction of like any social experiment that occurs of them meeting new people, because it's like a playground of what the wider society will be like. And to see that happen at such an instant early age just shows that we have so much work to do in protecting their mentalities in these institutions, because they will literally suck what makes somebody shine if you're not careful.
Yeah. The black genius is definitely destroyed in the classroom and in the family survival unit at home, as we have been discussing. I think when MySpace was really popular, I think that's when I first became aware of the fact that black people could hate themselves to the point where they're posting it on their social media. Because I would run into a lot of black self-hating like fellow teenagers, and and they just like hated being black, and that's what we talk about, like, why do you hate being black? And I never really understood it, and they never really gave any like real answers besides self-hate answers. It's not because I've been inferiorized and I've been placed in a functional inferior position due to white supremacy. It was never that answer, of course. So these chapters are allowing me to really contextualize a lot of things. Like,
Mm-hmm. It may. I wanted to comment. Sorry if I cut you off.
I was done.
Um, Yeah, it makes just going back and thinking about it, I think inferiorization go can really cause like that lack of self-respect and group respect. I see that in like the schools, for instance, I'm talking about. These kids are like having to have like an assembly because they're fighting so many times. They're fighting so much, you know. Uh, I think if you're practicing group and self-respect, you're not constantly fighting, the other kids that are in there with you. I couldn't understand what kind of beef you have with another child. Like like everything that you guys are arguing about right now is completely made up. I want
Yeah.
you guys to understand that, like you guys aren't actually upset about anything. Like the drama you guys have is completely made up. So them constantly like attacking one another, it really makes me understand how deep like that inferiorization is.
Yeah, damn. That reminds me of like the kind of work we could try to do. Like we should really create like a lecture on like inferiorization and also on lynchings. And we should really go to schools and show black children like what's been done to their ancestors. And we should really teach them some truth and show them that the enemy is not someone who looks like you. You know, the enemy is not someone who has black skin. And we really need to teach them like to stop fighting, stop squabbling, stop clowning around, and really have like create a lecture. And because like Jefferson High School, Cartwright Middle School, all these schools are just really rampant with like just self hate, and we definitely have the know how. And it's something I'll work on. Like I've already been compiling a bunch of photos of like lynchings. I came across William James, who was lynched, then burned, and then beheaded, and his head was placed on like a pole, so like a pike or a spike or whatever. And this is 1912, and lynchings still happen almost every single day. So our children need to be aware of this and really get serious about you know maneuvering the system efficiently.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how powerful, doing a lecture on inferiorization, like in a middle school, would be. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that would have like almost an instant effect on the way those kids view themselves. To
Mhm.
understand that, like everything you're doing is exactly like
What you what they want
white
you to do.
supremacy expects of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh, sorry about the
Yeah.
phone. Yeah.
I think it'll be cool to do that as well. And of course, there's gems in the chapter, such as the one on 249, where like I guess she's going by the rules or examples of self-respect to manifest. Where she says, number one, stop name calling one another. Number two, stop cursing at one another. Number two, stop squabbling with one another. Number four, stop gossiping about one another. Number five, stop snitching on one another. Number six, stop being discourteous and disrespectful towards one another. Number seven, stop robbing one another. Number eight, stop stealing from one another. Number nine, stop fighting one another. Number 10, stop killing one another. Number 11, stop using and selling drugs to one another. Number 12, stop throwing trash and dirt on the streets and in places where black people live, work, and learn. So yeah, Spot, I went to carve with you once, and I saw what you were dealing with. I saw the levels of like self hate and how our children have been inferiorized, such a to such an extent where like you have black children calling their counterparts bitches in front of the principal, in front of the doctor, in front of everybody, in front of myself and so on. So it's a real it's a real issue.
I agree. This was one of the things that I was gonna print out and put all over my house. as some younger siblings, and they're always constantly fighting and arguing with each other. And just in general, even with like, family, just look at just a constant reminder, and even friends and family, everybody should. These are some of the things that we can start practicing immediately. Imagine putting something like this in the classroom. Like, but I mean, today they wouldn't understand the context it'd be in, because people were telling me to do this all the time, and I never really listened. I want to read this part on 248. Did anybody read about black males? Okay. It says black males will have to refuse being passive, dependent, and female supported to any degree. They will have to demand from the oppressor and they will have to demand from the oppressor and will to achieve the right to be equal breadwinners with white males before white or black females are given equal breadwinner roles with white males. There must begin a black men's liberation movement or salary and job opportunities equal in all respects with that of white males. As a collective, black males must realize that they have been fooled into believing that white females are their most loving allies. While white females are luring black men into bed and to the altar, the white female collective is depriving black men through the white female liberation movement of their opportunity to function fully as breadwinners and not just as sex machines. I read this part about black females as well. Black females must begin to struggle to achieve the opportunities enjoyed by white females, to stay home while being adequately supported by their husbands, to provide adequate socialization and needed care and attention to the children. Black females must not be fooled into believing that a women's liberation movement is their salvation. They must cease believing in the myth of the strong black female who is capable of doing everything, breadwinning and socializing all alone. Black females must understand that we always will be oppressed, as well our sons and daughters, unless black men are liberated to defend themselves, black females and black children from any and all attacks and insults. So this part really resonated with me. This was one of those things where she just kind of gives you like a good basis, a good foundation to follow. Um, I agreed with some of it. It made me. I have to admit, my dream job is to be a stay-at-home dad. Like I like kids, so I don't mind being at home, and my partner or my wife going out. So I agree with her to some extent, but I'm gonna be honest. I want to be a stay-at-home dad. I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah, I also on that way. Would not mind being a stay-at-home dad, but yeah, I really enjoyed that part because it's like a reality check, because like later she talks about how actually let me just read it because I was planning on reading it. Let me just find it real quick. And it's and she starts by saying on 245, nature has endowed man with greater muscle mass, which makes more efficient and effective aggressors and protectors of people, just as females are more effective and efficient at giving birth and nursing the young. So begins to talk about how once the males of the oppressed group are weakened and destroyed, this is true no matter how many college degrees the females may have, no matter how tough, loud, or coarse their language may become, no matter how strong they may appear. In the final analysis, female must depend on the physical strength, discipline, and willpower of their men for the ultimate protection. Thus, always the males represent the major potential threat and challenge to male oppressors. So then she talks about how like this is gonna create this will create a balance because due to the male being the more of a threat and being the higher target and being targeted more through like lower income, lower ability to protect themselves and the people they care about. And it's on page 246. And it's also if that person who like had who was having issues dealing with her bitterness and with his and her history of black males, if she were like to read this chapter, maybe even this paragraph, she'd have like a lot of insight into like what's been done to the black and female dynamic. So this is on page 246. And it says the subsequent imbalance produced between the money, power, and pseudo social and 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 family power of the black female when compared to the black male eventually leads to alienation between the two of them. This alienation, followed by separation and or divorce, causes syndrome. The so-called strong black female and weak black male. The the system leads to the black male womanizing syndrome, attempting to prove that they are still men via the number of women they can seduce and conquer. But this syndrome only heightens the alienation between the black male and female, and it fails to convince the male of his manhood. So the word manhood is mentioned. So I just want to break down what that means for people who think that means something else. So manhood is just being able to protect your family and being aware that you're not on this planet. You don't. It's not like much. It's not being macho. It's being aware that you were born on this planet with a responsibility to fight for the survival of your people. And if you're not doing that, you shouldn't. You shouldn't even like have. You shouldn't like feel comfortable in calling yourself a man because men are fighting the good fight, which is a fight against racism, white supremacy. And if you're not doing that, then you don't have any manhood, as far as I'm concerned. So that's what manhood is. And also, this is what happens in the black male female relationship. Like we have it, like men are the weakest link, or black men are the weakest link, and we have the strong black independent female. There's a reason we have these things, and I'm glad this book is putting this to context, and so maybe we'll be able to understand that Black liberation is not a Black women are doing more for Black liberation or Black men are doing more for liberation. It's that there will be no liberation without the Black male and Black female doing it together. So.
Very, very great point. I completely agree. What you just said. I just lost what I was gonna say. Um, yeah. So yeah, you mentioned the black male being the weakest link. Like I know people that will black women specifically that will say that the black man is the weakest link, and yet imagine telling her that black men are the most oppressed group. I know it's not a competition, it's not about that, but we need to put that in the context. I think that it's important that people understand that the functional roles that we've been given in society, and how if we continue to function like that and we continue to function in that inferior state, that there pretty much won't be any liberation, like you were saying, Slaw. Like without the black man and the black woman working together, there cannot be any black liberation.
Yeah, I agree. Um, reading what I just read reminded me of how I felt when I was reading, to see all the division that's created and having the strong um, the strong black female archetype as a I saw that as a divisionary tool. Okay, so you have the strong black female who's supposed to raise the family by herself, lead the single parent household, while you have the black male who's what, dead, are in jail, or running the streets trying to prove his manhood by sexually dominating all the women that he meets. It's just like it's sad that inferiorization has created these archetypes and created these roles for Black men and Black women to play. And it's all designed to keep Black men and Black women separate, because Black men and Black women together is power. It's Black power. It's definitely a useful tool in countering and dismantling and ending racism, white supremacy, and replacing it with a system of justice.
Yeah, I agree,
I
Trey.
totally agree. The way that I see, oh, sorry.
Yeah, Trey, thanks for you can go, mate. Yeah, Trey, thanks for sharing that. It reminds me of like we telling like when you talk about the black male just not just running the streets and just another way to say that, just not being around, you're not being present, you're not being like a factor. And then like reminds me of me and your childhood, where like it was so bad, like the lack of black fathers and me and Trey's community, that it was weird if you had a dad. Like you got picked on for having like a so-called like dad. It was like awkward when your dad came and picked you up, because we were all like chilling and you got this dad coming and get you, like that's weird. And it wasn't a negative thing. It was just like, we were also like conditioned and normalized to be fatherless. Like I never resented never having a dad. I didn't give a fuck. My mom was my dad and mom too, or my mom. I didn't really care, honestly. But I think for me, luckily, due to being like a black person, also being a black person from South Central, not having a father probably benefited me, because I probably would have grew up more wanting to be more like macho, which is not manhood. I don't want to grow up being anything that's semblance to macho.
Yeah, I was telling Mary how like reading this chapter made me thankful that I used to have an Uncle Travis, like not really a father figure, but like at least someone that like gave me some type of level of structure, where I was like, okay, like be clean, at least wash the dishes, like there's just certain things that create like a more harmonious uh, physical layout of a home, like it being clean at least. Um, so like it could have been way worse. We had like no one, and I could have grew up to be like more conditioned to like have feminine traits, where like I want to embody how my mom lived, like wearing makeup and like being a woman. I just thank God that I didn't inherit any of the traits that pretty much is like the design of white supremacy, to feminize black children, black boys. And I think me and you both are doing quite well, considering the many oppressive structures that exist to uh, point us in other directions.
Yeah, I just wanted to like first of all, based off what Trey just explained, I wanted to read something and then I'll go back into what I was going to express. Um, yeah, okay, so all this is on page 248 at the top. All of these factors are responsible for the now epidemic proportions of black male passivity, effeminacy, and transvestism, bisexuality, and homosexuality. See chapter 6. The root cause of which is the racist system's necessity to stamp out black manhood through distorting the dynamics of the black family life. Black people should not view these patterns of behavior as isolated criminal or immoral acts. They must recognize as the byproduct of social political warfare against against the maximal development of black people as a whole. Um, for me, I feel like this part of the chapter really is kind of what we needed when we was going through chapter 6 and having people identify as Dr. Frances Cress Welsing being homosexual, being being homophobic, or being basically being derogatory towards, like, I feel like that little sentence right there just kind of encapsulates very much what she's been trying to say. It just goes against the maximum development. Like the way that I see the black man and woman being together is like, you know, in Get Out when the tethered basically just went, and then they all just assembled and went on, like did it, that level of organization. That's how I see. That's how I think white people view what it would be like for a black man and a woman to basically be organized and be in sync together as a black family unit. And yeah, it's extreme. That as soon as I saw that, I was just like, wow, that's organization. And I knew it's something I wanted, that level of organization and in synchronicity. And I do understand that that's why all these byproducts are like glorified or like increased, or conditions are made like what me and Ashley had experienced earlier in our mentality. Like the aim of that mentality or that going through that experience is that we come out the other end not wanting to be with black men, or completely being disassociated, or not forgiving that initial early reactions, and then just completely staying separate. Just on so many different levels, they've created different avenues for us to just basically want to stay separate for our own mental health. But when you get to the key point of where the mental health issue is coming from, you are able to deal with it more effectively and forgive the counterpart of who, like how Trey said, you guys are making fun of people who actually did have fathers, which was very yeah, but making fun of people who did have fathers. So just that, which was basically probably for your own mental understanding, like not so you don't feel bad about you not having a father there. You're making fun of them, and then in that case, that person could now hate his black counterparts in the environment because he's being made fun of for something that he should have. Do you see the point I'm trying to make? We do it to ourselves, and rather than imposing hate on each other, we should understand that it's constantly coming from a higher level of inferiority and put in place.
Jeez. Yeah, man. Like, so this is the last thing I want to share from the chapter. It's on page 250. It says black children, before they achieve emotional maturity and are capable of completely caring for the new black life, making a baby should no longer remain the criteria of black manhood or womanhood. Black manhood and womanhood should be determined solely on the basis of one's ability to be self-supporting and function effectively under the pressures of white supremacy. Because this is like I say this, and I want to say that people must learn that white supremacy, racism is a divide and conquer mechanism system. And people may understand that at a certain level. Yeah, they divide the people, but they're not just dividing like the people, they divide the groups within those people. That's why we have like people who have black skin, but they have all these different classifications. And then to further that divide, they divide the sex in those classifications, and they start adding new sexes in those classifications and new genders in those classification to further divide and separate. So it's just a constant divide and separate. And until one is able to realize this and counter it, do not bring another victim in here that you're gonna parade around with trinkets, not having any way to protect themselves. So really important. Like they divide the mind. This is a
The
really hard system to maneuver.
the European Silly, divide and conquer, dichotomization. Um, when I read that, I enjoyed it because it gave insight onto not only like we're not only learning about what inferiorization is, but we're also learning ways to like counter it, even if it is staying away from having children until you get to a certain age. I also agree. I don't think anyone should have kids unless they're like 100% grounded in their own reality and they're able to be self sufficient and they are practicing high levels of self and individual respect. And of course, if they're attached to a group that's also practicing that, the better. Because for the child to be like genetically to reach their potential genetically, they're gonna have to not only have great parents but have a great community where they're like learning from other people, you know, and supported by other people.
You wanna share some final comments?
This chapter's very deep. I was just wanted to touch upon the point someone made about wanting to be a stay-at-home dad. I find that interesting because I feel like that's not a bad thing. The only thing that I would say is like it doesn't being a stay-at-home dad wouldn't stop you from being like the main breadwinner, the main like the protector and provider. I guess like if that was the case, like if they want to be a stay-at-home dad, it's all about like sovereignty, like becoming like I guess if black men were to completely rise, the whole system will crumble in itself. Because it's like I don't think a black man can actually rise within the system because of the way it's built.
Yeah, of course.